Come on in, come on in, come on in. So a couple of things. A lot of what I'll show you will be some basic history of buildings, right? When this building was erected and so forth. So let me give you an overview while we're here, and then we'll look at some buildings, and then you can ask questions and I'll answer whatever questions I can, and then we got other experts and knowledgeable people who can answer questions. So you all already know, and we've mentioned briefly, that Charles Stillman started the Tuscaloosa Institute. He led the Presbyterian Church to start the Tuscaloosa Institute in 1876, and then he led the members of the African-American members of his church to start what was Salem Presbyterian that became Brown Memorial Presbyterian. The Tuscaloosa Institute and Salem Presbyterian started in another part of town, a little bit toward downtown. And so there were two locations for the college before it moved over here in 1898. It obtained a former plantation property called the Cochran House, and it moved over here in 1898. This church moved over here in 1931. And that was the original sanctuary behind you where we are. And then this was built in 1959 with the help of President Samuel Hay, who was the last white president of the college. So you had the college in 1876. It was in the Stillman House over on 21st Avenue, moved over here 1898. So everything over here will be 1920 and later in terms of building construction. And then the congregation moved over here in 1931 to be near the college. Okay, so that was the original. And I think as far back as folk can remember, you generally had College Chapel at the church, at least for several decades. And this sanctuary was built not just for the congregation, but to house chapel, College Chapel. Okay? So that's just a general orientation. Now, I'll tease out some politics, and then you can go study and ask questions later. Because again, once we get to the campus, it's going to be mostly this building this year. Okay? So what I recommend to you, hold that thought. I recommend you read James Anderson's excellent, groundbreaking book, The Education of Blacks in the South, from 1860 to 1935. As coincidence would have it, James Anderson is an alum of Stillman College. But James Anderson digs deep into the politics around the education of blacks from the Civil War to the 1930s. And you all know about the debate between Booker T and Du Bois. He gets into that, and he shows, I think he presents very well, and I think his work is considered pretty standard, that a lot of the education from the Civil War to the 30s was really to try to keep African Americans in work that would be generally approved by society. As co-ed education happened, 30s, 40s, World War II, then education opened up. This is not Joe Scrivener, this is James Anderson. What's in the book? The Education of Blacks in the South, from 1860 to 1935. So I've had some students tell me, for instance, sometimes students at Stillman would say, well, Stillman was started by whites, and I want to go to Tuskegee because it was started by blacks. What those students don't know is that everybody had to get their money from the same sources. And what James Anderson shows, it was the same politics driving both types of schools. So Booker T's education at Tuskegee wasn't necessarily blacker than the education here from Presbyterians in Tuscaloosa. Because you're trying to get the same money from the same philanthropists, and they really want to fund certain types of education in a racist, segregated South. Again, my authority on this is James Anderson, a Stillman alum who just retired recently. He spoke for us, he was on the board, he spoke at a commencement a few years ago. So people have these ideas about the politics of education, but James Anderson helps lay it clearly. Only as you get to the 30s and 40s and things opening up with co-ed education, you know, that you get with labor movement and so forth, that a broader sense of educational possibilities, okay? Questions about that before we get to the buildings and structures and all that kind of thing? Yes.
What was the original connection between Brown Memorial and the college?
Both started by Charles Stillman, and they were always interrelated. So you would often get people training for ministry, to do things at the church, to preach for the church, things like that. Because African Americans didn't have opportunities to do stuff everywhere. So you had an African American congregation that was already related to the church in history and founding.
So just convenient to have a closer.
Yeah, and just a historical connection. Both started by
Stillman.
Charles Stillman, and they wanted to be connected. So the first 3 or 4 black presidents were members here. Harold Stinson, the first African-American president, was a member here, followed by Cordell Wynn, who was a member here, followed by Ernest McNeely, who was a member here and hired me in 2013. So the first, and the board used to require presidents to be Presbyterian. So when you had your first black presidents, they were members of Brown Memorial. And that, you all know that the denomination pretty much ran the college to the 50s. Did you all know that? The home mission part of the Southern Church, R.A. Brown was the director of home missions. When he died in the early 30s, the church, the African American church, was named after R.A. Brown, the white guy over home missions in the Southern Church. But the denomination pretty much ran the church directly until the college became a 4-year institution in 48 and fully accredited in 53. And then you have self-sustaining, self-governing trustees. But from 1876 to the 1950s, the college is pretty much run directly by the denomination. And that would have its pros and cons. Fundraising and all of that. As you get more African American control, you get more politics and discussions and disagreements and that kind of thing. So you'll see a lot of places that are named for various leaders in the Southern Church in that time. Okay, so that's an overview. All right, so now we just do buildings and dates and stuff. All right, so the President's House there, that was built in 1936. You all see what I'm pointing? It was, the last president to live in that house was before McNeely. I think, did Cordell Wynn live there? Cordell Wynn lived there until the 90s, and then it was unused from the 90s until about 2015. The house Tuscaloosa rented it for $1 a year and refurbished it completely. Now it's a fantastic living facility. But it was initially the president's house. After a while, I guess, kind of like mansions for pastors. Maybe the president doesn't want to live on campus and everybody know when he or she is home. So the presidents in the 90s stopped living there. It was really unused, and then thankfully, Reverend Laurie Maxey, her husband, Dr. Andrew Maxey, and many others got involved, and they started the House Tuscaloosa Great Literacy Center. So that's 1936. Knox Hall right here is 1939. It's used for various things now. We're trying to get it back to where it was a dorm. It's not a dorm right now, but one of our church members, Elna Morrow, her husband, Alex Morrow, said he lived there and he played football. Stillman had football in the 40s and 50s and then in the 2000s, but he lived in Knox Hall. All right, so let's walk.
Same conflict was going on in the condo.
Right, and what kind?
What kind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
And and if you're raising money,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you can't just do what you want.
Yeah.
You know, that's just the nature of the beast. I guess we'll go to the prayer check.
So do faculty live on campus?
Yes. So yes, we'll talk. In the past.
Yeah, in the past.
In the past. Yes. We're putting you to work, videographer.
Yeah, I got it.
I think we'll we'll get in the shade over here.
You know, Shepard was in the last class that Booker T. Washington taught at Hampton, before he went to Tuskegee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you know how long he was at Hampton?
He wasn't there for very long either.
Did he finish any particular program there? Do you know?
I think he got antsy to be a pastor, and then he went to Presbyterian.
Okay.
And back in Waynesboro to send him down here. But I think he was there maybe.
So did he grow up Presbyterian?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. His father was the sexton of the church, the Presbyterian church in Waynesboro, and then. Oh yeah, he shared the stage with both Booker T. Washington.
We didn't get a tour bus.
We need a walk.
Yeah, we need a good.
Nice
Wasn't
level.
that far.
I want to go ahead, Joe, because we will be waiting a long time for those stragglers to get here.
Charles is no regard for the stragglers.
No
lost-
regard for these folks.
For the time. Well, I got us in the shade. Okay, so that's the Myrtle Williamson Prayer Chapel. That was built in 1966, and then it was refurbished in 2002. So you can, maybe when we walk back, you can look in. It's not as well kept as we would wish. So the light fixtures need fixing. There's some benches that need fixing. Myrtle Williamson was a woman who taught Bible here at the college from 1947 for several years thereafter. So this prayer chapel was built in her honor in 1966. And if you've ever been to Vanderbilt Divinity School, it has a very 60s feel with the colored pane. So those colored, you see those little openings? Those are colored panes, and so the sun comes through. And I've seen something similar to that at Vanderbilt Divinity School, which I think was a 60s construction, or at least the chapel at Vanderbilt. So it has that similar look. Again, colleges are always struggling with resources, and so we don't have it as fixed up as we like. Also, thankfully, it's not as, there's not as much mischievousness going on there as used to, but it's very accessible for couples to sneak in and, try to find some privacy. Harold, you might have to delete that from the video. So I think they try to lock it up, but that's the Myrtle Williamson Prayer Chapel, 1966, then refurbished in 2002.
How many can fit in?
It has a few.
It has 5 benches,
Yeah.
probably 15 people, 20 people at most.
I've been to one wedding when alum had a wedding there. Yeah, but it's not, just we need to fix it up some in terms of fixing the benches and so forth. So we will go, I think we can, I'll figure out, we'll go back that way. I'll just make you all walk off your chicken, okay? But we're going to pass Snedeker is the second oldest building on campus, 1929. To the left is Winsboro Hall, 1922. Hallie Paxson Winsboro, the first woman over Presbyterian women in the Presbyterian Church. That's named after her in 1922, and that's when it was the Tuscaloosa Institute until Stillman, he died in 1893, and in his honor in 1895, it was changed from Tuscaloosa Institute to Stillman Institute. So it became co-ed in the 20s with the Winsboro Hall. You remember my telling the story? Dr. Evelyn Jenkins Gunn talks about taking her first running water shower in Winsboro. So it's in disrepair. Again, I told you when you win your 10 million, just give us 2, 3.
No, we need 13. So
Okay. See, Charles that's why he's a ruling elder. I'm the pastor, so he knows the budget. So we got Snedeker in 1929. Snedeker was also a nursing program location, and for a while it was a hospital. There was one staff member, there was one woman, Annie Mary Gray, Annie Mary Gray was one person I knew, maybe the only person who know. She was born in Connecticut. She was an alum of Stillman, and she worked for Stillman for like 40 years. But the African American hospital, this is on the across the tracks. So this is West Tuscaloosa, one black part of town, the segregated part of town. So for a while, the black hospital was in Snedeker. So it was in Snedeker. It just lasted as a nursing place in the hospital for a few years. I think in the 30s and 40s. All right. Questions before we go back that way? We're going to go up to the left past Winsboro. All right. You're walking off your chicken and waking up for Michael after our tour. Walking, yes, walking. You edit as needed, videographer. Done for the day?
Yes, sir.
All right. We appreciate it.
No problem. Appreciate y'all having me. Have a good one.
Me too.
We'll find another shade spot over here.
Well, if you would, let them get in the shade, but I need the illumination for you.
Yeah. But does that work though? As long as you got some sun?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we'll get right here.
You have been working hard. Yes, you have. And
Well,
we sure
thank you.
appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Activity Center. But I've been talking to a conversation with someone at lunch.
You got enough sun? You may. Unfortunately, we got the water on Bellingrath. You know Bellingrath Gardens in Mobile?
I do not.
Y'all know